The world about your experience at Equinox. You were one of our first online interns, and now look at you. You're doing great. So tell us everything. First off, let's just start to talk about your day to day. So you've been there almost a year, right? And what's your day like
Yeah.
today?
Day like today, 5 clients this morning. Got a 2-hour break here. Got a manager meeting at 1, and then got 3 clients after that. So they gave us a little Memorial Day incentive to get clients on the schedule, to which I definitely took advantage of that.
I love that. Let's start off from the beginning. So you were hired in early July, right?
Yes.
And you did what a lot of people won't do and got out of your comfort zone. So you left your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you gained a
Yeah,
little
exactly.
experience training by yourself, but then you got into Equinox, and now you were hired during COVID, and so that interview process, what was that like? Can you recall?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I reached out. I put my application in, and I got reached out from one of their outreach team, Sharon, which I finally met her not too long ago in
Nice.
person. She doesn't do this area anymore, but we set up a phone interview within a week's time. I was actually really surprised at how fast I got, responded to from their initial application. And from there, I told her that I knew you. She said, yeah, I know Chris. And so we set up the interview maybe a week after that. So I got my suit on, went down to this Hollywood suit outlet and did all that stuff, and got myself a couple of suits, and came in for the interview. Interview went well. So they organized the actual application interview where we had to take one of the people through a session. And they do this a little bit different now, but then it was just one-on-one. And they asked me to design a program. And he said, I remember he said, I'm going to give you 20 minutes to design a program. And I'm like, okay. And literally like 3 minutes after he left the office, I'm waving him down like, we don't need 20 minutes to write a program. It's like, it's not that difficult. So he said, okay, explain it to me. So I explained to him all the rationale behind it. He said, wow. He's like, okay. And then we did the whole thing on the floor where he said, well, show me how you would program this exercise. Show me how you would walk up to this person, things of that such. And then 2 weeks later, offer of employment.
Nice.
Yeah, it
And
was pretty
so
smooth.
you got hired. Now, did they follow up with your certification to get a photo of it or anything?
No, he didn't. They didn't even ask. No, they didn't.
And I think that's really
Because I remember.
important for those. I think that's really important for those that are listening, because as we've helped Sharon and we have Rachel, there's like 3 or 4 other recruiters who I'm really tied in with. They're looking for level 1 coaches. If you like exactly like you just said, there's so many trainers out there that are certified that will go into that interview and they will spend 20 minutes writing out a program. It's like, it's not that freaking hard if you know how to train, if you're qualified like you are. And you do not need a certification to get hired. They will say it, you need a certification, you need X amount of experience, but they're looking for, as I talk about in my book, to help Nick. And that's exactly what Carlos is. He's hungry, he's educated, he looks the part, he's personable. There's so many great qualities that he has. And so what were you going to say right there?
No, I was just going to say, no, they definitely didn't. Because I brought my actual piece of paper with me. But, in no part of the interview did NASM come up. They did ask me about Show Up Fitness because the hiring manager at the time, he wasn't familiar with you guys. And I remember I said at the start of the interview, I said, it's really interesting that, people start off their road by being personal trainers by reading a book and passing multiple choice tests, and there's no actual application like what I got. He said, yeah, you know what? I never really thought about that. He said, yeah, that's right. Like, that's true. They don't go to school. He said, yeah, you're right. I could tell, like, for him, he was like, whoa, yeah.
Yeah. And so fast forward to today, it's not an easy route. Like, just because you're hired, clients aren't just falling in your lap every single second of the day. You have to be there a lot. You probably are pretty consistently getting to the gym around 5 a.m., maybe 6 a.m. Some days you're there maybe 12, 16 hours. And so take us through what that normal day looks like. And let's go over some of those highs and some of those low moments and how you got through them.
Definitely early starts. In fact, if I ever have a day where I have to be here by 8 o'clock, that's like, whoa, I got to sleep in big time. I mean, I'm definitely used to the alarm going off at 3:30 in the morning and being here by at least 5:30 a.m. The hardest part is obviously there's gaps in between the scheduling. And, for me in particular, obviously like right now, it's really busy, but we have those gaps, and you have to either fill the hours with something productive. You have to tell yourself, Carlos, I'm not hungry. Don't go up the street to Ralph's and get something else to eat, because it's just so easy to do that when you have those times. So that's really what makes those days the long days. It's like stuff isn't necessarily back to back. I might have 6 sessions, a floor shift, and a meeting, and maybe an hour's time between, like on average, between all of that stuff. So that's what makes the days really that long. Like last week, I had 7 or 8 sessions. So I was really, by the time I got home, I was pretty smoked. And there's been a couple of times like that. But, you know, that really is the trainer life. When we start off on this journey, we imagine this life of waking up, cranking out maybe 2 or 3 sessions, you know, getting paid in full for all of that, and then having the whole rest of the day to ourselves. And at least for us newer trainers, it is definitely not like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you pushed your phone off, but we're okay. There we go. So
Yeah.
So let's go. How many people have you seen, trainers, come through and either quit or not been able to make it?
Oh, the whole trainer board, our bio board, it's totally different than when I started. Not only the bio board, just in corporate in general, there's turnover all the way across. You think that member advisors, management, the PT managers changed, the GMs changed, the assistant GMs changed, the trainer boards changed over multiple times. Matter of fact, we just got a new set on, and one of our new set of 3, one of them already decided that this wasn't for him.
And why do you think that is in your experience? You've been there for a year, and so you see all these trainers quitting. Why do you think that is?
Well, this one in particular, I thought this was interesting because he told us that he had 10 plus years of experience already. But I know for him, I think this crowd at Equinox, fairly fit crowd, educated in their own right. So I thought to him this was intimidating. But for a lot of people, lack of experience, the money is not great, especially to start off, and you've got to work your way through that, and you've got to have that confidence. And for a lot of new trainers, I can only imagine myself if I were a 20-year-old that just got certified through NASM and tried to put myself in front of this crowd. I could imagine that kid would be very much shark food in this very educated corporate crowd. With just, you realize, oh crap, I don't know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And but for all of us, there is those highs and lows here.
I was talking with one of the top trainers at Equinox. He's like number 3 or 4 company wide. I think you guys are getting close to about 1,800 total. Pre-COVID, there was almost 4,000 trainers. So even though we are getting back to it, there's been a delay in opening of gyms. Right now we're at 106 with Equinox. They have still aggressive expansion plans into over 200 by 2030. And so there's tons of opportunity for you to grow. Yeah. And there's just what would you say is one of the hardest things about your job? Would you say it's the scheduling part and just having those long days?
Scheduling is, I'm glad you brought that up. Scheduling is a challenge. For me right now, the hardest part is I'm getting used to the long days. I mean, we should all, in this field, just learn to love it. For me, it's the hardest part is just the up and down. Business is great, then business is not great. One thing I did pick up, or I'm starting to see a lot that, from a business standpoint, being a personal trainer is really a lot like any other business, in particular, like my old job. And as the PT manager just reminded me, like, I'm having a really good month right now. But as she told me, this is when you have to really look to build more business, because it's going great now, but it's not going to always be like this. So if you're not bracing yourself when that wave goes the other way, that's when you're going to struggle. And I'm seeing what she's talking about.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good motivation for you, is to take a step back, really take a look at your Swift right now, and to see how you can develop some of those streams of revenue. Because ultimately, rightfully so, management, they're looking out for their numbers, they're looking out for their club, they're looking out for the big brother, and that's what that's just the realistic expectations. And I think that's why a lot of trainers do quit, is they're brought in with false expectations. And so how can you, as a trainer, not a trainer for Equinox, just overall as a trainer, how can you start to develop your streams of revenue? So if you were to have a month that comes down, and typically June and July are a little lower, if you had an extra 500 or 1,000 per month coming in through another stream, then you'll be protected. And I think what people can potentially do is like they start coasting, they get a little comfortable because they hit 100, 120 sessions. Like, holy crap, that was a lot. And where a lot of trainers burn out is they're not smart like you and they don't have realistic expectations. And so what they'll do is they'll just slam their foot on the gas and they want to get to 120, 140, 160 sessions, but they're not working out regularly. They're not continuing their education. They're not learning. And so it's kind of ironic because what happens is these trainers, they end up kind of like the clients. They'll start putting on weight and then they'll start pointing a finger at everyone else saying it's so not fair to train at Equinox because they're taking all my money and I'm just a cog in the system.
Yeah. And I've talked, and, my clients have, a lot of them have asked, how much money do you guys get out of the portions that, we pay? And I tell them, and they're really surprised and they say, oh, that's so unfair of Equinox. And I say, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but you really think about it. You think about who's handling the marketing, who's paying for all this equipment, who is putting, potential clients in front of trainers. When you think about all that stuff, you can't really say it's not fair. Obviously, as trainers, we would want another scenario, but when you think about it, yeah, that's about right. They've got to handle everything. So
it's tough because it's, is it fair? It's a whole other argument, but I think what we can do as trainers is I'll challenge everyone. I talk about this in my book and I want to ask you a question about my book here in a second. Whereas a lot of trainers like you who are not educated and they play the victim card, their clients will start chopping them up and be like, well, how much do you get paid? And they say, $30, $40 per session. They go, oh my gosh, that's not fair. You should train somewhere else. And then I'll go with you. And so what happens is, how many clients do you have right now, Carlos?
15.
15. So he gets
15 plus 2 that I train privately. So 17.
Carlos gets a verbal commitment of 10 of those clients who say they're going to train with him. Right now you're making, let's just say $50 an hour, but you're not. So if they were to say, hey, I'll come to your spot and I'll pay you $80, that's a win-win for everyone, right? So Carlos isn't very good with business. And so he doesn't realize that just because they give him that verbal commitment, that's not going to translate into actual practical aspect there. And so he leaves, he takes his clients and he starts making more those first couple months, but then his clients will start going back to Equinox. And so of those 10 that he had, now 2 months later, he has 4 and he's not making any money because he doesn't know how to get clients without that brand on his back. People go to Equinox, no offense, Carlos, but they go there for Equinox. They're not going there for Carlos. And so I think it's really important as a new trainer, if you're listening to this, or a trainer who's been in the game for 5 years, take the responsibility and the accountability onto yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get 3 of my clients by myself without Equinox on my chest. And I'm not going to do it in the gym. I'm going to go do it at a Whole Foods. I'm going to go do it at a run club. I'm going to do it somewhere else to show that I can get clients without that name on your back. And then once you can do that, that gives you a really good opportunity, a really good, you'll be at a really good point where you will know that, I can do this by myself. And it's not to knock the corporate environment. I think there's a lot of pros to the corporate environment.
Absolutely.
But are you at full time yet? Full time?
I'm not. I actually did enough sessions this month to be full-time, but because some of those sessions were only 30-minute sessions and they only give us a half a credit for those, then that's what kept me from being full-time. But so just so you know, to be full-time right now, you need to do at least 42 sessions in the pay period for 3 pay periods in a row. So I had enough sessions on my calendar, but again, since some of them were 30 minutes, no. So I was that close.
So you have to be, so pay periods every 2 weeks. So for
every 2 weeks, yes.
For 6 weeks, then you're full-time and those will get you more. You'll get insurance and you'll get other few things as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, that's the goal right now. And as far as like the private clientele, because I have had some members reach out to me and say, I would be interested in training with you part-time, but I always tell them I'm only training my part-time clients on Saturdays because really just trying to build 2 businesses right now, it's a lot, having to go back and forth. I would be losing business on one to get to the other. So I'm just still, focusing on building business here at Equinox. And in the meantime, just doing private clients on Saturdays. And, that's what works best for me right now.
That's admirable. So the last question I have for you, and I appreciate your time today because this is great, but you've read my book, the first one and the second one, I believe. And so I'm going to be putting out the most up-to-date version here soon. And that definitely will get you in there as one of the people who I interview because you have a lot of valuable input. But what would be one thing that you would like to see in that book where you're at now, reflecting back on your your year plus of training, something that would be really beneficial for a newer trainer?
Something that will be beneficial for a newer trainer. Wow. I think you touched on a lot of good stuff in there. I really like the way you asked all the people that you interviewed, like, you know, like what's a book that you recommend that, you know, a newer trainer will read? Something that I think I would really like to, because like for me in particular, like where I'm at now, I feel like the corporate route is, I think that's the way that all new trainers should go. So that would just be my input there. Something I would like for you to talk about more. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I
That's
stumped you, Carlos.
Yeah, you did, because like you covered everything in there.
Okay,
So
that's good to know. Because essentially our goal at Show Up is that we want to be able to provide a community where people are constantly learning. And, you know, because we have a bad rep, and I've interviewed managers and some managers who you report to, and they oversee over 10,000 trainers at different corporate gyms. And that's still the statistic that we hear: 90% of certified trainers quit within a year. And it's because so many different factors. We can't just, you know, I want to blame it on certifications. It's not just because of certifications. It's the false expectations. And I think it's also a big part of it is the work ethic today of people. They're getting a little more comfortable because of the easy access to social media. So, you know, I've known trainers that will get paid $500 to $1,000 for a TikTok post, and you want to go work for an hour and get paid $25 or $35, they say that's not fair. So it's almost like this hybrid trainer needs to be molded, where they encourage you to develop your online content. They encourage you to develop more stuff so you can generate these streams of revenue. But, you know, we're not there yet, but that's something that we're hoping to change here soon.
Yeah. You know what I really think needs to be driven home to the typical trainer starting out is the importance of understanding business. We talk a lot about education. Obviously, education is important, but you know, when you get into this environment, you really see how important it is to understand your numbers, understand where you need to be, you know, based on like your own expenses, and having that game plan, because that's something that a lot of trainers don't understand when they start out. Hey, even me, when I first started out in this thing, I wasn't thinking about my numbers. I was just, let me just get a session on wherever I can. I wasn't thinking about how much money I need to make. What do I need to do to get there? Now I'm very much looking at what do I need to do to get that next pay period bonus? You know, how many sessions do I need to put on? Like, where can I get them from? Who do I need to reach out to? You talk about the in and help networking. That one is huge, Chris. That is, in this corporate environment, that one is so important, you know, to be able to network with the people that you need to get with. A lot of the experienced trainers, like when I first came on, they would always talk to me at Carlos, you got to know how to play the game around here. But nobody really talks about what the game is. They just say, you got to know how to play the game. So now I see what they're talking about.
And what do you see they're talking about? What does that mean?
Being able to network with those member advisors. And that one right there it's very tricky, because you'll see a trainer run in there. Who knows what they said to the MA, but some trainers are better at networking than others. I'm getting better at it. You know, I mean, good with some. And I remember when I first started, there were three member advisors here. And I tried to go introduce myself to one. And as soon as I ran in her office, she said, I'm on the phone right now. And that was embarrassing. And then there was another new member advisor there. So I asked the PC manager, I said, hey, what's the new MA's name? He said, the name is Jason. I'm like, okay, let me run in there and introduce myself. I run in there. Hey, Jason, how you doing? I'm Carlos. He's like, my name's Marcus. Okay, that was embarrassing to start over. So 2 embarrassing experiences with 2 of the MAs. And I got in good with one. And she was the one that was really helping me. 1 month later, she's gone. I'm like, okay, now I've got to get in good with the other 2 now. And I've already had an awkward situation with those 2. So it was kind of weird back and forth, like walking by, hey, hello, how you doing? And, you know, those, and obviously this whole thing, when I first started, there was a bit of culture shock for me too, coming from another job of 17 years into this environment. But yes, long story short, that whole networking process is huge. You've got to be able to do it if you're going to be successful around it. You got to be able to use all the resources in the corporate environment.
And I remember we chatted a little bit about, I think one of the advisors who gave you a referral, and I even sent you some money, because I said, hey, you got to pay them. You got to pay to play. And I think that's part of the game. Is a lot of trainers are really frugal. I'm sure that you are pretty, at least acquaintances, if not buddy buddy with some of the trainers there. And if you have 15 trainers there, how many of those 15 trainers do you constantly see seeking more education?
Yeah.
So that's really important, because they say the one percenters, the ones who are the elite, they're the ones that are constantly growing their mind and their body. And again, this is not to point fingers at anyone, but have you been to other equinoxes?
I haven't. I have not
Okay.
yet.
Okay, so I don't want to put you on the spot on this one. I was going to say, how important is it to the L part of Help Nick?
Oh, looks.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I actually brought that up in one of the meetings. I was telling him how I was like, my coach, when he first started, he noticed how all the trainers' hair was a certain style. So you said, well, I'm just going to grow my hair out long and, have my own style about it. And, I was telling them how, and I told them about Help Nick. And it's like, I've never heard that phrase. I was like, yeah, that's something they have over at Show Up Fitness, and the L in looks. Yeah, it is. It's important. I would also say at the same time, we've got a lot of members in this gym. They have the look already. Doesn't mean they're qualified to train anybody. So yeah, the looks are absolutely important. But just because somebody has the looks doesn't mean they're necessarily qualified. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the reason I'm begging that question is because it'd be interesting to look at those 15 people who you've seen, and also the 30 plus, maybe 50 plus that have gone through there. And if you were to kind of give them a score, almost like, okay, let's look at the Help Nick score, see where they're at, and then the likelihood of them, sticking around. I typically find newer trainers, younger ones, have a harder time because, like you're saying, playing the game. And if you're frugal and you're not continuing education and you aren't looking the part, you need to realize that you're on stage, people are watching you. But if you go to these managers and you pay them, like legitimately pay them, like put them on a retainer, a couple $100, just giving it to them, they're going to see the value in making those referrals to you. And then, like you said, you get a big one where you sign. What's the biggest package that you sold?
48. That costs about $5,500, $5,520. So
that's a nice little transaction right there. You're probably like, oh shit, huh?
Yeah. Well, you just I'm used to asking for money now, so
it's not great, even, and that's huge. That really goes to the confidence aspect. And so,
what? I shouldn't even say I don't really actually ask anymore. I just kind of assume that they already say yes when I go to those initial meetings.
That's great.
I don't give them a chance to say no anymore. I just say, based on what you told me, this is what training week will look like. I think we should train Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. When do you think we can start? And let's go like that. I don't ask for sales.
I love that. Yeah. That's really great. And so it's really neat to see you grow from the first time you were spotting Danny, and we like making a joke about that one.
And, I tell my clients about that too, especially my female clients. I always tell them back on my first day of school how I goofed that up, and they always get a good laugh about that too.
So the professionalism is huge, but I give you a ton of credit because you're still there. So you are that 10%. And so now you're at a point in your training career, it's like you're saying, to build that business. But as you build that, plant little seeds over here. So whether if it's, getting your website done, getting leads coming in, people who aren't training with you regularly, having them, even if you were to have a lead that you were to send out once a week, that's 50 leads per year if you're consistent with that. And of those 50 leads, if you get 5 of them, which is 10%, to sign up for your online programming, whether if it's for running or if it's injury prevention, rehab, prehab, whatever, $100, that's an extra $6,000 a year. 5 clients, $500, $6,000. That can translate easily into year 2, into 10 to 20 clients when you learn how to optimize the referral process and you ask for those. So then you have a stream of revenue that's coming in where you're getting 1,000 to 2,000 per month. And then you're able to grow that business. And then you can kind of look at your clients and say, you know what, I like this type of client I work with. I want to emulate that at my own house, my own garage, somewhere else. But that's how you're going to build the confidence. And then you're ultimately going to be able to have a comfortable living, not like the average trainer who goes and just chases the dollar, where if you want to make $100,000 at that environment, you're going to be working anywhere from maybe 70, 80 to 100 hours per week. It's nuts. So let's focus on how we can grow our brand and our business, but also not compromise the integrity of our health or our mindset too. So
yeah, I was starting to think about that last week, as long as these days are, how long is this really sustainable? and because they are really long days to start,
Mhm.
man. And you know, you just really have to learn to love that lifestyle right there.
Yeah, I give you a ton of credit though, because this is just one of those small hurdles, and we've already reflected back since 2019 when you first started, and
Yeah.
throwing your NASM textbook in the garbage is one of my favorite ones. But now
Oh
where
yeah.
you're at, and then next year when we do this again, where you're going to be, and then the next year, and so it's just really cool to see your progression, always positive, always still making time for yourself and working out. Like you said, I think it's Saturdays, or which day do you have off? It's just kind of for you.
Saturday is my Equinox off day, and that's where I train private clients.
Mhm, yeah.
So yeah, and you know, when you have that relationship with your clients, they start looking out for me too. They start sending me reminders like, Carlos, remember, you got to take care of yourself. They give me advice on how to make sales. I really like that. That
Mhm.
kind of really shows that you have that connection with clients, that they want to see you do well. They're giving me advice like, hey, Carlos, you get any new clients this month? What technique are you using? I think you should do this. This might work good for you. So, I always appreciate that from them too.
And I always like to, flip it back on your clients, because you're learning, your clients love to help you. So you can try to get them involved and have fun with it. So you can start off letting your clients know for June 1st. I had a call with one of my coaches, and one of the challenge was to see if I can get one contact from each one of my clients. And so, Sally, if you're able to connect me with someone at your work, someone who has similar goals, then what I'll do for you is I'm going to, and then you lay it out, whatever it's, you give them a free session. If you give them $50, you give them a Starbucks. So out of all my clients, out of my 15 clients, whoever gives me the most referrals, I'm going to take the dinner. We're going to go to Boa Steakhouse. We're going to make it really nice and swanky. And it's a $250 gift card or something like that. People may look at that and go, that's a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. But if you have 15 clients and you get 3 or 4 solid leads, that's 45 leads, of which maybe it's your online business, maybe it's in-person business at home, or maybe it's Equinox business. As you're now learning, if you had 45 assessments in a month, your closing rate is better than the average of what they settle for is 30%. So let's say that you're 50%, Carlos. That means that you're going to have 22 new clients who are going to be bringing you business. The ROI on that is astronomically higher than anywhere else you could go. And that's because you're thinking bigger. So I always like chatting with you, and I appreciate your time, but planting little seeds to get you thinking bigger so I can help you make more money, and let's see what you can do here in June.
All right, man. Yeah, that's the challenge right now. And there's a lot of opportunity for me this coming month. And so I make sure I capitalize on all of that. But yeah, I appreciate your input there.